quite a bit. But you can get quite a bit of detail if it's a raw file. It's just going to be noisy in the shadows. We'll talk about noise reduction, and maybe we can see how much we can get out of that. Now, the problem with what we've done so far is that the software we use to merge our picture costs how much? Anybody know what Photoshop costs? I'm guessing 500 bucks. Do you really need a $500 program just to merge 3 images together and save it back into Lightroom? Sounds kind of ridiculous. But if you already own Photoshop, why not? So let me show you an alternative to using Photoshop. I'll select the same 3 images, and this time I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to choose Plugin Extras, and that's where I'm going to find Merge to 32-bit HDR. Now, you guys out on the interwebs won't find that unless you've already purchased a little plugin. Plugin I think we're going to give away later on. And this is a little plugin. If I remember correctly, it costs about 20 bucks. So instead of like a $500–600 Photoshop, you're spending 20 bucks. It's a one-trick wonder. All it does is merge together images. And just so you know, if you purchase it and download it, let me first show you how you can install it. This is what I did when we were on break because I needed to type in a serial number. Didn't want you guys to see it. So I went to the File menu. I went into Plugin Manager. And when the Plugin Manager came up, in the lower left, I chose Add. When I chose Add, it brought up something for my hard drive, and I located the file that I downloaded. The website where you can buy this plugin is hdrsoft.com. And I chose Add Plugin. Then it showed up here. I clicked the Done button, and that's when, if I went to the File menu and chose Plugin Extras, I could find that particular entry. Then the very first time I used it, once I clicked Merge, it asked me for a serial number. That's what I didn't want to have you guys see me type in, so that's why I didn't do the installation. So anyway, here it says you've selected 3 photos to be merged, and it wants to know some options. First, align images. That's almost always good to have turned on because there's usually some movement in your camera. Unless you're using a cable release, mirror lockup, and a tripod, all 3 together, there's usually movement in your camera. And this is going to align the 3 images to make sure that they're nice and crisp. You need to turn on crop aligned results because if there was any misalignment and the images needed to be shifted lined up, you need to throw away a little info to get them in there. If you turn that off, you would end up with an image that's exactly the same size as your original, whereas turning it on, you'll lose a few pixels on each side when it aligned it. This one here, horizontal and vertical shifts, I think that's mainly good for on a tripod, if I remember. The one below is if you're shooting handheld and you think there's a lot more motion. Remove ghosts means if there's any motion in the scene, you want to turn that on and try to reduce any weird looking artifacts due to motion. And then finally we can say reduce noise so that we can have an even cleaner result than what we might have gotten out of Photoshop, because right here it's going to try to reduce the noise. So it's only the underexposed images that really would show all the noise. That's the dark ones, and that's where the noise is lurking. But if you don't mind your computer spending more time, you can say all source images. It will give you a cleaner looking end result. It's just going to take a lot more time for it to do it. Whereas this is the one that you get the most done for the littlest time. Then here it says, what do you want to name the files? Merge file names. I believe we'll take the first file name of your image, and then we'll just add on to the end of it the numbers, just like what the differences was in the files. And you can add a suffix if you wanted. I'm going to call it just HDR. All right, so I'm going to do that. You don't really have to use most of these others. If you use half floating point format, that's not very obvious. Your file size will be a lot smaller, and I don't think you're going to notice really a difference quality-wise. And this little checkbox here is going to just make it so the brightness of your image looks relatively normal when you start instead of looking overly bright or overly dark. It's kind of weird, the names they give some of the stuff. Anyway, I'm going to click Merge. Now it's going to take those images, and just like Photoshop did, it's going to merge it into a single file. When it's done, it's just going to plunk that single file right back here into Lightroom. It should have a file name the same as the first image that I used, plus a little bit more text on it.